morning. I'm Pete Najarian. The start of a new week. It's Monday. This is Market Rebellion, and this is The Take. I got to tell you, when we look back to last week, the markets just kind of were moving around a lot. We had a lot of volatility. There's no doubt about that. But when you look at the close to close from a week, from 1 week to the end of the week, really not a whole lot to say about it. Now, that being said, some of that reason is because we were having a little bit of a nice move to the upside. We did give back some. As a matter of fact, on Friday, Dow was bumping around. It was getting pushed to the downside. All the major indices were. Dow was down about 350 points. The NASDAQ down 300 points. And that's a pretty big move when you look at that from a percentage perspective, 2.5%. Also, the S&P down about 1.6% or 68 points. So we did have an overwhelming push to the downside. And that was something that stood out. There was one area that did stand out, though, that was standing tall, and that was oil. That was energy. The price of crude was up there at 120. But then you look over at the 10-year. The 10-year about 295. It's been gaining a little bit and getting closer and closer to 3 for a while now. You've got Bitcoin's been hovering around that 30,000 level for a while. The volatility index in that no man's land actually closed underneath 25. And we've been talking about this now since we've kind of pulled back in that volatility index. That 20 to 25 area has always been considered a no man's land. It's exactly what the markets kind of gave us last week. Yeah, they moved up, they moved down, they moved around. So there was definitely a lot of different things to do. But, it's in that area where, it's not really giving us the signal that we're looking for. Volume did drop significantly too on Friday. 37 million contracts trading on Friday. Well short of the 42 million we've been averaging year to date. So something to be said for that as well as we get into June a little bit. There was a very tight range, by the way, with that volatility index as well. So what was really getting hammered the most? What pulled the markets down? Consumer discretionary, names like Tesla and Amazon and Netflix and TJX, those kinds of names. Technology down about 2.5% as well. Apple getting beat up a little bit. Facebook, throw in Netflix again, throw in Google, and you've got a recipe there that's not so great. Financials absolutely were getting hammered as well, down about 1.5%. It was all the biggies: Citi, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo. Big difference today, but on last Friday, definitely under some pressure, along with some of the staples, Coke and Procter & Gamble and some of those names. But as I said, energy was strong. It was up about 1.5%. You had that big move in crude over 120, closing over 120. It was names like APA and EOG and Marathon and Occidental and Exxon and Chevron and Conoco, all the usual names, and those beta names absolutely just rocketing to the upside. So there was some positivity outside of energy as well. Northrop Grumman, one of those names. Caterpillar, another one of those names. I mentioned energy already, but throw in Okta and Biogen and maybe even a little Alaska Air sprinkled in there as well. And that's where you get a little bit of the positive side. Negative side, it was easy. It was Tesla, it was Etsy, it was Micron, it was NVIDIA. Some of the semiconductors really getting hit. ISRG, you got CrowdStrike, you got Lucid, you've got Docu, you've got Workday, all those names. But there was one name in the energy space that definitely stood out for multiple reasons. One of those was, first of all, it was my final trade on Friday for the 5 o'clock show, Fast Money. ChargePoint. We were going to try to hit it. We didn't get a chance, so I hit it as my last final trade. The volumes in there were absolutely outrageous. Now, it's a little bit misleading because some of that was in spreads, but they did buy 90,000 calls. They were rolling those calls, so selling 90,000, buying 90,000, that is volume. So you're talking about some very large volumes there, but over 500% over a normal day in terms of volume for ChargePoint. So that said a lot. The stock had a big move. All of that being said, very, very interesting, and that name definitely did stand out. We had a big, strong push early on today. Started off the day up 300 points on the Dow, a couple hundred points on the NASDAQ. We've been kind of mostly staying with that. We did have a little bit of a pullback, but last I looked, we were up about 325 points on the Dow, about 215, 220 points on the NASDAQ. Really, really very nice participation day. And now the only area that's actually in the red is energy. Energy pulled back a little bit, 118, 119. Nothing very dramatic, but after that big run, you can understand why you see a little bit of pressure on some of those names. Got the volatility index still hovering near that 25 level. I talked about the 10-year approaching 3. We hit 3. Matter of fact, right before I came on, I looked, we were right at that 3 level. Bitcoin getting a really nice lift today, up about almost 6%, trading around 31,000 last I looked. So that was something that definitely stood out. But when I look at what was moving from the start of the day in that first hour to where we are right now, a lot of different areas do stand out. I look at technology, a little bit of a bump to the upside. Communications, a very nice bump to the upside, up about 2%. We had a really nice move from consumer discretionary, up from 1.25 up to a 2.3%. Really, really nice. And I mentioned financials already. Financials really starting to get after it pretty nice. Now, some of the names that are moving, there's some definite headline names out there. I look at Spirit Air, obviously another strong bid from JetBlue. That has that stock actually taken off to the upside. Yeah, pun intended. I'm looking at that. We talked about this one as well. And this one really stood out the other day with unusual option activity, but it was Keurig Dr. Pepper. And boy, did that thing take off. Why did it take off? Well, it looks like they're entering into the S&P. So that got a really nice lift. They were buying the 35s. The stock was trading 34.5. That zoomed the stock up well over 37. Those options ripping to the upside. I always talk about TDA. That's discipline dictates action. I think that there's some action, at least for me. Everybody's going to have their own deal, but I think you always have to act when things move at that kind of a pace and that quickly. You've got to, I think, take some action. I have already taken some action, just so you know. The Amazon split, big story. A little bit more about that in just a second. So what's working early on today? Well, Las Vegas Sands, definitely one of those names. Generac, I'm looking at Monster. I look at Eli Lilly, all very strong. Chinese names really having a nice start to the day as well. PDD, JD, Baidu. I'm looking over at NetEase, all of them in very, very nice, strong, positive territory as they're starting to open up over there. We mentioned the Keurig stock. That had a nice big lift today. I'm looking over at Visa and American Express, strong. We talked about some of those financials. Those I'd throw into that category. Apple, really, really strong start to the day. Everybody's talking about, the different deals that Apple's got on the table, and be talking about that today. We got Salesforce as well. But we got Twitter. We've got some names in the biotech space pulling on things right now. You got Gilead, you got Regeneron. Also, take a look at Boeing, a little bit of a push to the downside. AstraZeneca as well, small push to Home Depot as well. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. By the way, tomorrow, you're going to not want to miss this. It's going to be great. My man, AJ, who is one of the best technicians I have ever seen. AJ from Market Rebellion, he and I are going to be sitting down after the close tomorrow. We're going to be talking about everything that he's looking at from a technical perspective and some of the signals that he's getting from there as well. That's tomorrow after the close. All you've got to do is go to Market Rebellion, you can sign up. And even if you can't watch it, we will send it to you later if you're not able to watch it live. So however you want to view that, it's going to be great. AJ's always really, really fun to listen to, and the guy really knows his stuff. So I'm really excited about that one. 2 unusuals, and we're out of here. By the way, I was looking at my schedule. I am wide open, which is kind of nice. I don't think I have anything with CNBC until maybe Wednesday. So don't be looking for me today, and don't be looking forward to me tomorrow, but you will see me on Wednesday. So I got 2 unusuals. Number 1, we don't talk about this name at all, but Kellogg, just the letter K. So that gives you a little bit of a perspective of, hey, this stock's been around a little while, right? So stock was trading about 68.50. We had a buyer of 13,000 of the June 72.5 calls. Gives you a little bit of time. These aren't expiring at the end of this week, but they give you a little bit of time. So you got basically, call it 2 weeks, 15 cents up to about 25 cents. Can this stock make that kind of a move in a couple of weeks? I think anything can happen. So absolutely, I followed in on that one. Amazon, I mentioned that one is a 20-to-1 split. A lot of people say, well, it doesn't change anything. You know what? Once and for all, let's settle this whole thing. They're right. It's the same prices. It's the same this. It's the same that. But with the 20-for-1 split, it does create liquidity. It does create access to people who never had access to a couple $1,000 stock. And with the options, you're going to see a lot more volatility. All that being said, you also get a lot more volumes. I mentioned liquidity. How about the fact that early on, first 45 minutes, half hour of the day, Apple always leads, followed by Tesla. Looking at NVIDIA and looking at some of these names, Amazon almost never in the top 5, never in the top 10. Occasionally, I guess, but it's very rare, right? Well, first day, Amazon, After the split, looking at it, traded over 500,000 contracts, like 550,000 contracts in the first half hour, 40 minutes, something like that. Apple was not even at 200,000 yet. That gives you perspective of the hunger that people had for this as they came to this split. And that does have some effects on things. Well, people can push back and say it doesn't affect anything. That's ridiculous, because with the options, there absolutely is an effect. So that's just my 2 cents. Amazon trading 125.60. We had a buyer, a little bit of a buyer, 35,000. Yeah, we've never seen that in the past in Amazon. 35,000 of the June 10th expiring. That's this week. The 130 call. Stock trading 125.60. They're looking at the 130s. 35,000 of those were bought. They bought them for $1.10, up a little bit higher price than that. But the stock is moving around. The stock last I looked was moving a little bit to the upside. So you got to be looking and be very patient with this. But I'll tell you what, we're seeing volume after volume after volume running into this name right now as we speak. Folks, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, a lot of people don't understand it. But if you want to have better understanding, get educated. You can do it with books, follow the smart money. You can do all those different things. You can go right to our site, and we've got guys like Bill and these guys on the educational side. Absolutely phenomenal. You're going to want to know how you can be a participant in the derivatives markets. It's growing. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I talk about it all the time. And anybody who saw the CBOE news today understands a little bit more about some of the open outcry. And obviously, there is demand. Anyway, folks, have a great day of trading. Look forward to seeing you later on.